This episode of Let's Talk About Brand was initially broadcast as a live stream in 2020. It has been edited from its original format.
Hello everyone, I'm Christine Gritman and welcome to Let's Talk About Brand. I do this show live every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time. We're here live today with Winnie Sun. She is an incredible financial educator, financial analyst. She's on TV 5 days a week. She's on all the time. She has been ranked the most influential female in the finance space on social media. So we're going to talk to her all about how she came to own this niche and how, being amazing at what she did first, she was then able to parlay that into social media success as well. All right, so without any further ado, we are going to bring on the fabulous Winnie Sun to talk about owning a niche. Hello, Winnie.
Hello.
How are you? Thank you so much for joining us. People were so excited to hear that you were going to be on because, as you know, you're pretty influential in the social media space. And we're talking a little bit before we went live about how that came to be, but I would love for you to share that with the folks at home, kind of your journey from... you actually, one interesting thing that we didn't really talk about before we went live is that actually before you even were a full-time financial analyst, you did work in the media space, which I think a lot of people don't know about.
I know. A lot of people didn't know about that. Well, first off, I am so honored to be here with you and all your amazing friends, and a quick shout out hello to Jen Cole as well. Well, let me give you sort of the backstory, if you will. I'll try and keep it as short as possible. So, you know, I am a child of immigrant parents that came from Taiwan. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, but my parents were really great savers. Like literally, I remember as a kid, right? They used to own this pizza store, and just imagine two Asian parents owning a pizza store in like a really rough neighborhood, and the pizza store didn't sell alcohol. So you can imagine how much pizza we sold. Not too much pizza, but I used to man the cash register there, and then like once a month we would go to Burger King because Burger King would do this promo once a month where you can get hamburgers for like 29 cents or 39 cents, and that was like us eating out. So those are really, to give you an idea, so we didn't have a lot, but we felt like really happy, you know, as kids, because we were always around our parents and whatnot. And then, so fast forward, you know, my parents saved up money. All they did was save, and they invested in a real estate project. 3 months before I started college, they pulled me aside and they shared with me that they were going into bankruptcy. Ooh. So when most people are looking excited about going to college and, you know, roommates and all that stuff and rushing sororities and everything, I was just concerned about helping my parents keep the house. Because my dad felt so much, I guess, guilt from losing the house. I mean, not losing the house, but, you know, failing in this investment. And so my mom pretty much had to, you know, pull us up. So right when I went to college, I worked multiple jobs, and one of them happened to be on a television show called Jones and Jury. So I was actually pre-law at the time. So and they had me go on. I thought I was going to do legal research, but they put me in the audience department. So then I ended up working that show along with America's Finished Videos and a couple other shows. And then one day, one of the executive producers pulled me aside and says, Winnie, you should start your own television audience production company. So I said, okay. So I was like 19, 20 years old. Yeah, wow. I started it in my college apartment. And by the time I was around 23-ish, we were the second largest in the United States. Wow. I was filling shows for Funniest Videos, Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune, MTV, Gladiators, all these different shows, moving thousands of people per week. And then I sold the business at 24 to a competitor, and I got recruited to work at Smith Barney because at night I was actually taking classes in financial planning because I really wanted to help my parents out better understand money, because I felt like they just, you know, didn't know, they didn't have good financial advice.
So many business owners get into business because they have a passion or because they feel like it's something to do, but then they don't have that financial background to really make sure that they can keep it afloat and have that business sense beyond the passion.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. So I just felt like, you know, I should do that. And then got That's really how I got in the financial industry. Really a series of accidental events. And then the rest is sort of history. And then in 2011ish, I was pregnant with my second child, and then I started my own firm, which is where we're at now, which is called Sun Group Wealth Partners, and we do work with clients across the globe.
I love that. So you went from television, but not on camera. So that was entirely behind the scenes, doing the grunt work, to entrepreneurship, owning a company, which you then sold, which is fantastic. You really grew that incredibly. Then you moved to growing your own financial services practice. But again, you still weren't the face on camera that we know and love today. So I would love to hear your journey because finance is not something that we typically necessarily even think of when it comes to social media, right? It's kind of a tricky thing. So I would love to hear your journey of how you went from being a financial services person and not having anything to do with entertainment or media or video to putting yourself out there on social and also on television.
It's so funny, this story, because I am an extreme introvert. Like the type of person, I'll give you an example. I actually didn't speak in school until I was 12 years old.
Oh
So
my goodness.
I don't do well with a lot of people. Even to this day, I'm terrible at cocktail parties. I am just
Oh,
think I'm not friendly when you see me at conferences and whatnot. And it's not that I literally just don't do well with, more than one or two people at a time. I'm much more comfortable on stage in front of 10, 50,000 people than on a smart group setting. So it's interesting because my husband's very social. And he was like, you should he's a network engineer. He's like, you should get on social media and you can get clients from that. I'm like, no way I'm going to do that. I am definitely not doing social. So by the time I actually did end up doing social media, my name, which is not like the most common name, was taken on all the different platforms. But I actually decided to do social media because at Smith Barney, the manager said, okay, now you guys can use LinkedIn. And being the good little Asian employee, I was like, okay, the manager says I should do LinkedIn, so I better do LinkedIn. Otherwise, he's not going to be happy that I do LinkedIn. So I set up LinkedIn, and then soon after that, like within the first year, I signed on several clients from LinkedIn, but one in particular ended up being close to a $30 million client. And that was sort of an aha moment for me that, wow, this LinkedIn thing is pretty good. So I really started working more and more on LinkedIn. And then during the financial crisis, during Bernie Madoff and everything else, the Bernie Madoffs of the world were telling the story for financial professionals like myself. So you know how when we go, okay, perfect example, like a social media world conference or any sort of VidCon conference, people would go up and meet people, and they would meet people like you, Christine. They'd be like, oh, what are you doing? They find out what you do, like, oh my gosh, I love Christine. And then they would meet me, and then they'd be like, so Winnie, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm a financial advisor. And I joke because financial advisors, lawyers, you'll understand this. We have what I call financial advisor stink. And that is when someone meets you, like, oh, what do you do? I'm a financial advisor. Like, oh, it's so nice. Oh, like Christine's over there. I got to get to her. Have a nice event, okay? Enjoy the cocktail party or whatever. See ya. And literally nobody would ever want to talk to you. And I was just like, this is so sad because my clients absolutely love me. Like to a point where I'll meet with them, they'll cry and they'll be like, oh my gosh, you changed my life and this and that. Like, if I could just bottle that up somehow, like people would want to be my client. I wouldn't have to work so hard. I mean, I was cold calling, I was doing all this crazy stuff. And so that's when I realized that I needed to use social media to start telling my story. So the Bernies and the Lehman Brothers weren't telling my story for me.
that is incredible. That is incredibly important. I love that. I love that it's all about taking control of the narrative, which is really ultimately what personal branding is always all about. Yes. All right. So Winnie, so you finally realized, okay, I need to take control of the narrative here. So you started out on LinkedIn, getting yourself out there on LinkedIn, connecting with people on LinkedIn. How did video become such an important part of your branding strategy?
Well, good question. It actually wasn't part of my strategy. I did a ton of seminars, and whenever I do seminars, people would just be so happy. They love, and then so much of our business came from seminars, and I got introduced. I got connected with Forbes very early on. I became a Forbes contributor, and I think it's now almost been 7 or 8 years. And then one day, when I went to start our own firm, they actually hired me a publicist. And one day, I think my second publicist, they said, CNBC, would you like to do CNBC? So went on CNBC, and the first time, I'm going to be completely honest with you, it was like train wreck. I remember my publicist said, okay, so the producer said, you look the part, you know your stuff, but there's something wrong with your speaking.
Oh no.
So I was like, okay, I'm never doing this again. But
that's exactly what a shy introvert needs to hear, right? You talk funny. That's terrible.
That's all funny. I know. It's because of my Chinglish, because I spoke Chinese at home before speaking English. Even though, I was born here in Los Angeles, I thought it was an LA accent, but I guess it's a Chinglish accent. So I worked on that for a really long time. And then soon, it started to show. And I actually got better doing video by teaching myself by doing Facebook Live. So I actually worked with a speaking coach, actually a doctor, to see if there's something wrong with my tongue and everything, because I literally thought there was something wrong with me.
Oh my goodness.
So after like spending a year and a half trying to fix myself, Facebook Live became available, and I actually used it not to go live, but actually to see myself talk. And I actually fixed myself.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so that's really how it started. And then it's so funny because now I'm on Fox Business every Monday. I'm on Digital Trends on Tuesdays. I'm usually on CNBC at one of the other days. I've done speaking at Forbes conferences, and usually my whole week now is filled with national TV appearances. And everyone's like, "Oh, you're such a natural." I'm like, "Yeah, natural, 7 years in the making."
Yep. It's like an overnight success when you've been hustling for a decade. That's people only see the end result.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Mm-hmm.
I love that. So you're on TV all the time, and you're also very prominent on social media. How do you marry the two, and how do they feed into each other in terms of, in general, putting your brand out there?
Well, I think it's critical. When you own a business, whatever business that is, you always think, well, what is the goal of the business? And the goal of the business has to be in finding new business, right? So yes, I have a multi-million-dollar financial practice. That doesn't mean that we can just hang out and just do our thing. So, because the thing is, if you really care about your team and you really care about your clients or your customers, your responsibility is to drive new business to yourself. Because if you're struggling financially, or you're worried about how you're going to make payroll, or make, in our case, I own the building, so make mortgage on the building, then you're no good to your existing customer client base. So I really believe that we should be spending, as business owners, more than 60% of our time on new business development. And so that's really what we do. My social media presence, I remember this is a long time ago. My earlier publicist, I said, should I start doing more social media? And he's like, no, don't worry about social media. Just do what we're doing with media. You'll be totally fine.
Around what year was that they said, don't worry about social media? I'm just curious.
And by the way, yeah, and he's young. He's not like, he's like an
But
older,
like about what
older.
year was that?
Well, probably I would say about 2014, 15.
Wow.
Maybe 13. So it wasn't that long
Very
ago.
recent.
I know. And then my publicist now, who's like literally my soul sister, my best friend. But as soon as I started working with her, she's like, "No, Winnie, you're getting on Twitter." And then I remember thinking, but everybody's telling me Twitter's dead. Are you sure we should do Twitter? She's like, "No, you need to build out your Twitter. Just focus on Twitter." And I was like, okay. And so I really focused on Twitter. And then one day she says, "You should actually create a Twitter chat." And I was like, "A Twitter chat? What's a Twitter chat?" She's like, "Let's do it." And then we're figuring out the numbers and name, hashtag, whatever. And I really, as an introvert, I never wanted to be called, which is what it's called today, which is hashtag Winnie Sun. I was like, maybe we do money chat, maybe we do, business chat. She's like, no, it's hashtag Winnie Sun. I'm like, oh, awkward. But, she was right, because now we are the largest business chat on social media. We average 150 million impressions every week. And that's actually average. The numbers have gone way bigger. And she was right from like literally, she's my soul sister. She literally led me right. And so between that, and that certainly helps a lot with media appearances. And you can't kid yourself. I've been working with employees from the Los Angeles Times for, goodness, almost 2 decades. And I have a lot of award-winning Pulitzer Prize reporters as my longtime clients. And they will tell you a big portion of how their pay is reconsidered each year is not only that they write great articles and they write award-winning articles, but that people read their content, right?
Yes.
So it's that's a big part of even traditional media. So if you pair up your social media footprint and then your stuff, you have to be real. I think we can't discount the fact that you really have to be the best of the best in your industry. So I am like, luckily, I'm an award-winning financial advisor. I'm really good at managing money, like really good at managing money. And like, yeah, I will change your life if I get
Modesty
a chance.
is a waste of time on this show, girl. Rock it out. Brag.
Okay, I'm so good at managing money. I mean, I have changed so many lives, families, generations of lives because of how I manage money. So I knew before that, all I had to do was it's really hard, but using social media and media traditional media to amplify the good work that we were doing. And so that was my job. My job was to do that. And that's really sort of when the magic happened. And then it's all interesting because people always ask me, well, do you get clients from social media? And I say, not directly. Do you get clients from when you're on CNBC and, all these different shows, Good Day LA, whatever? I was like, not really. They're like, so why do you do it? I was like, because that's sort of the first step. And the rest of it is more hard work. And that's your responsibility to figure out, to take what you've built on social and media and transform into business. So right now during the pandemic, I didn't know this, but we were really well positioned coming into the pandemic because we had already been doing video for years, right? Mm-hmm. And so all it meant was taking all my studio equipment from the studio and moving it home. Yeah.
That's perfect. And that's so smart. Like, if you were already online, this was probably not such a disastrous year. I mean, obviously some people, but we have a bunch of comments that I can't bring on screen apparently because I'm using a streaming code here. But Linda Ray and Jen Cole and Tim Lewis. But I have to say we have some comments for you. Kelly cannot add 2 + 2 with a calculator, so she wants to. So she's she's definitely going to be following you for sure. And Troy wants some help with the live stream graphics. We love Troy. Troy says, "Beautiful story, Winnie. What have you not done already? You are so powerful." I love that so much. And Tim Lewis says, on TikTok, there's this whole trend of various people saying that they're an accountant as a job because it's easier than describing what they actually do, which is a very interesting point. I want to hear how you convey what you do on social, but first I want to say a couple things. So Stephanie Liu is here. We love Stephanie Liu. Woo woo! Love her. Who doesn't? She says Winnie does a fantastic job cultivating her audience. Yes.
She's like my little sister, my dim sum sister.
I love her. And Kelly says it's so inspiring that you stuck with it and worked to improve it rather than giving up and saying it just wasn't for you. In terms of speaking and video and all of that, you really worked at that. It's very inspiring to all of us who think that we could never do that. Linda Ray, who does business development, says new biz development is key and constant. Amen. So I want to I want to back up a little bit. I would love to hear how you made it clear exactly what it is that you do, because to someone else's point, there's so many different things in finance. How did you really make it clear, like, here's how I show up, here's what I do? How did you define that?
So that's sort of the secret sauce, right? I think, a lot of financial advisors aren't on social or media because they don't know what to say and what to share. And so they become like sort of just frozen in that moment. And I think everybody has to go through their own journey. In the financial industry, most people like us, the traditional financial industry doesn't look like me. It's mostly a white male in their 50s. And predominantly we serve the high net worth to the ultra high net worth. So a lot of financial advisors, traditional financial advisors, don't necessarily want to do social because they don't feel like their clients are on social, which, obviously we know is not true. However, I think the key thing is the difference between me and the typical financial advisor is I talk regular people money.
Yeah.
I talk about finances the way I talk to my clients about it. And my clients are the who's who of their industries, right? Like, for example, there's one client of mine that she's been with me like almost 15 years. And she is literally a legend in the movie industry, okay? Like legend. She's like president of one of the largest movie studios right now. And I won't tell you which one, but then you'll Google it and find out. But she said this, and it always stuck with me. She says, Winnie, like everybody wants my business. Everybody comes and talks to me and this and that. But you're the first person that I've ever worked with that when you explain things, I actually understand them. And I can explain them to my son and my daughter. And that's huge because then I know you really know your stuff. I'm like, exactly. So I actually talk about things that people can relate to. For example, we can all relate to, the stresses of figuring out whether it's a need or a want. We can understand like the stresses of like if I'm going to have enough money for my kid to go to college and if I could possibly retire on time or even early. And I really want to go on vacation and how do I get there? And so those are the things that I focus on. Those are the things most financial advisors don't spend a lot of time on because for many of them, that doesn't pay the bills, right? But my motto has always been different because I grew up with not a lot of money, my husband as well. And, the firm that I used to be with, Smith Barney, which got bought out by Morgan Stanley, I would not have been an ideal client for them. And that would have been a mistake because you fast forward 10 years and I would absolutely have been the perfect client for them, but they would have missed that opportunity. So my feeling is as a financial advisor, I am going out there and investing in people that the potential future needs, where they're going to feel loved and cared for and heard. And they can walk into my office and they're going to feel like they totally fit in. And in fact, Stephanie Liu has been in my office. So she knows, like I have a candy bar. Like the whole place doesn't look like a financial firm. It looks like you can come and hang out, And I think that's what I was hoping to do as I wanted to change the image of the typical financial firm that I didn't feel welcome even working there all the time. So that wasn't a place that I would want to be in long term. And I wanted to create a financial service or advice or experience that I would want to go to. My kids might want to join one day. My other, my posse would want to just come and hang out at. And so that's what I translate onto social. And that's why it works, because it's like Christine, you've always said, it's that being authentic of self. So I'm just reflecting what I would want from a financial person or a financial money buddy,
I love that so much. Oh, this is gold. Thank you. So I have two quick questions. We are wrapping up in just a couple minutes, but I wanted to mention two quick things. So first of all, Stephanie Liu here in the comments. She's your hype girl. I love it. She's the best. So she pointed out that the Winnie Sun tweet chat averages 100,000, or is that 100 million? I don't know. Impressions every week. It's a lot of impressions. So I'd like
1 million.
Wow. That's incredible. So I would love to hear what your Twitter chat is about and how it connects to the rest of it. Just kind of the quick and dirty.
It's a business chat, so it's about personal finance, entrepreneurship, and building out your best financial self.
I love that. And to that end, we have a question from my Twitter chat on Tuesday. Kelly wants to know, what can small business owners and entrepreneurs do to not feel so scared and overwhelmed about learning the financial aspects of running a business? Because it's scary, and the whole point is that you educate people in a way that's not scary. So what's like a quick tip you can give for that?
Two things. Number one, I have a live stream show every single day after the financial market closes at 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 Eastern, right? So you could do that if you're really just shy. The second thing is actually reach out and set up a 30-minute consult call with me, totally free. The reason it is because when I first started my business, imagine having that good financial sort of, just a couple tips I could give you now. And as you build bigger, those will, like, if you just make less mistakes as a business owner early on, later on, everything is a lot smoother. And so when you make it big, then, you can come back and I can help you with more. But I do think now more than ever, people just need like little answers and little questions. I had a student actually come to me recently, and she says, I just need to know, like, how do I pay down my student loans? I got like 6 of them. In what order do I pay them? So I was able to answer that question in like a minute. And then she moved on, and she just feels so much better. And I think those are the small tweaks you need along the way.
I love that. That is incredible. Thank you. So this is awesome, Winnie. Tell people not only where they can find you, because that is a whole show unto itself, but where they should find you. Where should people who are maybe not so financy, where should they go find you and learn from you to start with?
Well, thank you, Christine. I would say just keep it easy. Just go to Twitter, follow me at Winnie Sun, or if you prefer other platforms, I'm on all the platforms. So just do whatever works for you, and I'll be there for you.
I love that so much. Thank you so much, Winnie, for being on. This was so informative and fantastic. And thank you for being on. And also, you're a big supporter on my Twitter, too. So thank you for not only cultivating your own brilliant community, but for being a great community member for others, too. I think that's such a key part of what you do, and you're amazing.
Thank you, Love Buzz. I love you so much. Thank you so much for letting me share your community. I adore you.
Love it. So next Tuesday, December 8th, we're going to be talking about how branding, personal branding, both is and isn't performative. And we're going to be talking about that with the prepared performer, Ms. Molly Mahoney. So definitely check those both out next week. I've got Twitter on Tuesday, Facebook, and now Periscope and Twitter on Friday. So join us for that. Thanks so much for joining us today. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to Let's Talk About Brand, part of the Adweek Podcast Network and Acast Creator Network. This podcast was produced by Christine Gritman, executive produced by Al Manarino and John Heil, and edited by Christine Gritman. You can listen and subscribe to all of Adweek's podcasts by visiting adweek.com/podcasts. Stay updated on all things Adweek Podcast Network by following us on Twitter at Adweek Podcasts. And if you have a question or suggestion for the show, send us an email at podcast@adweek.com.